All right, we're recording. I hope this picks me up good. So, a little disclaimer. I know Bethany's heard this before, but I'll say it to you too. I am no guru, and I am as imperfect as the most imperfect person you've ever met, and I'm no master of anything that I'm teaching. And this is not my philosophy, and this is not my information. This is a universal truth that when we apply forgiveness in our lives more, we suffer less. So I've come to a place where sometimes I can, especially if somebody asked me. So it's been kind of new, being just speaking publicly and like having workshops about this stuff. It's been new for me, just like getting up here and spitting, rather than somebody saying, "Dude, Chad, I'm struggling with this. What do I do?" That's when it really comes through me, and it's much easier. But I'm slowly developing the ability to put my ego or my human mind, my fear-based conditioned mind in the passenger seat and allow myself just to be a conduit for truth. And not because I've read this in a book or because I've seen a documentary, or definitely not because any church or pastor or religion told me about forgiveness. I mean, of course, I've heard that those things lightly spoken about, and I've heard plenty of people pay lip service to forgiveness in my life, but it's so much deeper than that. When you develop a true spirit of forgiveness and you have forgiveness as a principle in your life. The word principle means first thing. It means that which is to be considered before anything else is considered. So if we can really truly bring forth the principle of forgiveness in our life and have make forgiveness kind of our state of being, we will greatly reduce the amount of suffering we cause for ourselves by thinking so negatively, holding on to painful experiences, running from our shadow, all these different things that us humans tend to cause for ourselves, and issues we tend to cause for ourselves. Alchemy, if you look up the etymology of the word alchemy, you'll find Latin and Greek, al meaning the art of, and chemi meaning transmuting base metals or turning metals into gold. But even before Greek and you want to hold him yet?
Yeah, you want to take him?
I mean, he's pretty cool. I think he's good. Even before Greek and I'm just sweaty. I'm sure I'm not making him any cooler.
You guys are both hot bodies.
Thank you. Even before the Greek and Latin descriptions of alchemy and stories of alchemy, a lot of historians and researchers say that it dates back to Chimetian traditions, or like pre-Egyptian traditions, in which the word alchemy can be translated as out of darkness or out of blackness. And so, how'd you like that yoga dome? Did you do anything cool?
Yeah.
You did?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Can I get my water from the car?
Yeah. My keys are right here.
Sarah gave me this for free.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Alchemy, out of darkness. Let's just let that be our working definition. There's physical and literal alchemy, where people over the years have tried to take base metals such as lead and iron and other base metals and turn them into gold through experimentation. But we can also, and I think what serves us most importantly on a spiritual journey, or on a journey to at least become more free and suffer less, look at it as an allegory for transformation of consciousness. So classically, they're turning dull, dark, heavy, iron is black or like a dull color, lead is dull, like dull gray, and turning it into something that shines, turning it into something bright, right? So alchemical transformation, or alchemy within ourselves, alchemy of the human soul, alchemy of our consciousness, can be looked at as turning our dark or shitty experiences in life, or our base experiences in life, into gold, turning them into higher levels of understanding and wisdom in life, rather than letting, just remaining down in those base experiences and letting them affect us and cause us pain for the rest of our lives. So when I say alchemy through forgiveness, I talk about, forgiveness being a potent transformative source or a tool to take our painful experiences in life and grow from them and turn them into understanding. So I had this shitty experience in my life, someone hurt me really bad, or I hurt myself really bad, or even I hurt somebody else really bad. Rather than beat myself up for that and hate myself for that and grow in self-loathing and like hold resentment in my heart for that experience, if I do that, I'll remain a base metal for the rest of my life, right? I won't ever turn into gold. And the driving force from turning that base metal into gold is will. It is where you exert your will. Or do you care enough to take from that experience the valuable lessons that it brings, or are you lacking in care? Is it so painful that you can't, that you remain in that base state of consciousness forever? And using your will to exert the force and the energy of forgiveness is, a way to transmute that experience. So, I named this workshop like, 4 or 5 days ago when I found out I was getting a workshop, and I've done several on forgiveness, and it's like the cornerstone of a lot of what I teach and talk about. But I thought alchemy through forgiveness is a cool way to look at it. It's a nice allegory, and there's many ways to do alchemy, but any truly potent alchemical transformation within ourselves needs to include forgiveness. Otherwise, we limit our growth, because if we don't forgive, then we hold on to fear, or more accurately, if we don't forgive, we do not place love where there is love lacking. Because fear isn't really necessarily a real thing. It's one end of a pole. Just like darkness is only the absence of light, darkness is not an actual thing. Fear is not an actual thing. It's really just the absence of love. And not like Hollywood romantic love or anything like that, but true agape, true love of creation, true evolutionary force of creation. So, recognizing where there's love missing and applying love there is a way to grow and a way to evolve our consciousness. And in my estimation, forgiveness is the most potent way to do that. Forgiveness requires the application of both masculine and feminine love. You have to have the feminine care and compassion, the true care of the sacred feminine, the compassion and the nurturing empathy of the feminine, and empathizing with yourself and saying, I'm just a human. I'm a human being. I'm perfectly imperfect. I won't ever reach perfection. I love myself. And then you have to have the masculine action and guardianship and protector status to actually give it away. You have to actually give the gesture, the deed of forgiveness. So it requires both. And so not only is it helping you grow and evolve by transmuting and releasing pain and fear, it's also balancing and raising both your masculine and feminine. Because it requires both those forces. What's up, Kat?
Dude, I got distracted because I had my ring stick and I walked by main stage, and my spirit animal came to me, and I just jammed out with the natives in the field.
Excellent.
So I'm really sweaty. So
Good.
ready.
Hell yeah.
That's my cool.
I haven't even been jamming in the field, and I'm sweaty, so you're doing good.
It was like, not to interrupt, but my spirit animal's a wolf, and it was like, I felt my wolf face, and I was like, this is where I need to be for a minute.
Cool. Hell yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed that. We started a little bit late anyway. We started like 15 minutes late. We've been talking about like what alchemy is, what alchemy has been referred to along the ages, from Egyptian, pre-Egyptian, Chimetian traditions to Greek and Latin philosophers trying to transmute lead and iron into gold, things like that. That's physical or literal alchemy, but taken as an allegory for spiritual transformation, or taken as an allegory for transformation in consciousness, is where we can find the most value in it. Are we gonna really free ourselves, liberate our souls, liberate our consciousness by tinkering with metals and trying to make gold? Or are we gonna do it by tinkering with our base experiences and consciousness and trying to forge them into something brighter, something shinier, something that really helps us grow in our wisdom and our understanding. So that's what we've been talking about up until now, and that allegorical or that allegory of alchemy, best serves us or serves us well when we look at not turning lead into gold, but turning our shitty experiences in life into higher understanding and wisdom. And when we apply our will and the will to offer forgiveness to those shitty experiences, even if we were the cause of them, forgiving ourselves for being human, forgiving ourselves for being imperfect. Once you truly offer forgiveness to a painful situation, it allows you to zoom out, because until you offer forgiveness, you're chasing your tail, or you're running from your shadow. Your shadow is constantly chasing you because you have self-hatred or self-loathing, or you have resentment towards someone else or resentment towards yourself. And until you truly offer forgiveness, it's just a cycle of negative emotions and holding on to fear and limiting ourselves, building a prison around our mind and our consciousness. So when you truly do offer forgiveness, it allows you to step outside of that cycle and observe it for what it was. Oh my God, I've been like, I didn't really ever think about it or know it, but I've been hating myself for that experience for this many years. Or I've been hating that person for this experience for this many years. And like, I just forgave them, and I just physically felt chains shatter off of my heart and my mind. And it's a huge sigh of relief. And talk about breaking generational trauma and generational curses, however you want to refer to it. But the things we're so afraid of becoming, as far as parents or friends or lovers or comrades or whatever you want to call it, the things that where someone has let us down before, almost 10 times out of 10, when we can't forgive that person or ourselves for when we've let people down, or we haven't been the son or the daughter we want to be, or we haven't been the father or the mother or the lover that we want to be, when we can't forgive ourselves, we are going to do that again. We're going to do it again. We're going to become exactly what we're afraid of becoming. It's going to happen. So it's take the lesson or repeat the experience. And the most potent way we can take the lesson is to start from a principle of forgiveness. And forgiveness does not ever and can never change a wrong to a right. So we have to separate the action from the person. Okay? Because you've heard my story before. I've said it to you. If I was molested when I was between 6 and 7 years old on more than one occasion, well, I can forgive that flawed, wounded, scarred human being, because nobody who's mentally well or nobody who's healed does that to someone else, right? It takes a flaw or an imperfection in consciousness to do that to someone. I can forgive that person, but that never changes pedophilia or molestation from a wrong to a right. So we have to know objective morality and moral principles in order to separate the action from the human, right? The imperfect human. I can forgive that person, and I have forgiven that person, but I'll never allow child molestation to take place on my watch, and I will always stand in opposition to it because it's objectively wrong. My forgiveness doesn't change it into a right, and that's really important to understand, because our ego wants us to believe that if we forgive an imperfect human or a flawed human being, then that's the same thing as saying, well, that was okay that they did that. It's not okay. It is not okay that they did that. That action was wrong, and I can tell them that. I can tell them that I've forgiven them. I love you because you're a human being on this planet with me. I forgive you because you're flawed and imperfect, and you've hurt people, and you've hurt me, just like I've hurt people, and I've hurt others, and I've hurt you. But those actions were wrong, and I'll do anything that's within my rights to prevent those actions from happening again. So, understanding the true 7 deadly sins, or the true objectively immoral actions, which are assault, rape, murder, theft, trespass, coercion, and willful deception. every wrongdoing that's ever been done from one person to another falls into one of those categories. And really, if you boil them all down, they all come down to forms of theft. Okay, so an immoral action is the unjust taking of something that doesn't belong to you. Murder is the unjust taking of a life that does not belong to you. Rape is the unjust taking of someone's free will sexual association that doesn't belong to you. Assault is the taking of someone's well-being or taking of someone's physical well-being that doesn't belong to you. Theft, taking their personal property. Trespass, taking away their security in their domain that doesn't belong to you. Coercion, taking away someone's free will choice by threatening them. And then willful deception is the theft of someone's ability to make an informed decision. And so it all comes down to a form of theft. When we truly understand those 7 deadly sins, then we can really say, if somebody has committed one of these transgressions against us, or we've committed them against somebody else, I've done one of those things to somebody. I've assaulted somebody before, when I was a young hormonal teenager, and I can forgive myself for being a deranged, scarred, wounded human being that initiated violence against somebody else unjustly. I took someone's physical well-being, and it didn't belong to me. I can forgive myself for being so fucked up at the time that I did that, but I don't have to forgive the action. Like, be at peace. You don't have to forgive the action, because that action is always wrong. I won't ever do that again. And if I see someone initiating violence against my neighbor, I'll intervene and I'll stop it, because that's within my rights. So that makes forgiving easier when you can tame your ego enough to say, no, forgiving an imperfect human does not mean condoning an action. It doesn't mean turning a wrong to a right, because nothing that you or anyone could do could ever change a wrongdoing from a right into a right. So that's really important to remember, and that's potent alchemy. That's looking back at my shitty situation, and for years I hated myself for doing that to somebody else. Now I forgive myself, the imperfect Chad, and I still stand in opposition to immoral actions. I still stand in opposition to transgressing upon my neighbor. And that not only does that take a weight off your shoulder, but it also makes you feel free, because it increases your vibration of sovereignty, because anyone who I go around, they know that I'm not going to hurt them and that I will protect them. I don't have to say that to anybody. They feel that freedom and that sovereignty because I know it. And and that doesn't mean I don't mess up and make mistakes and transgress, but every one I do, I'm quick to forgive myself, so that I can quickly zoom out and look at the situation and say, well, you fucked up, Chad, or if somebody does that to me, I'll say to them plainly, you fucked up. That was immoral. That was wrong to do. I love you, and I forgive the imperfect you, because I'm imperfect too. But that action is immoral, and you will not do it to me again. I will make sure that doesn't happen. And if I see you do that to someone else, I will intervene. That's just saying, that's not speaking from the ego, because you're not trying to hurt anybody. You don't want to further hurt them, because that's never going to let them heal from whatever caused them to hurt you in the first place. But that's just saying what's true for the sake of it's the truth. And it's saying, I love you, I forgive you, that action will always be wrong, and I can never change that. But it's up to you to adjust your behavior and make sure you don't do that to other people anymore, And if you don't, you'll continue to inflict suffering upon yourself and your neighbor. And that karma's yours,
First of all, I forgot every single one of my paintings at home.
Oh, dang.
And I'm going to the
We can make some more paintings here. They're setting up a little art gallery in here. You can, no, you're okay.
This is Christina. She has a booth here. I'm trying to talk her and bring some of our paintings.
Oh, cool. Hey, Christina. Sienna, you girls will be able to do some more artwork here. There'll be plenty of places to do art. Don't worry.
It's very empowering to hear these things, because I'm actually addressing next week when I get back someone who has sexually harassed me, to finally release that. And I don't know if it's healthy. I'm seeing it. I
it's important, you know. You don't have to, but until you do, you will suffer unnecessarily. You know, you will ensure that what they did hurts you for much longer than it needs to. You see what I mean? So the choice is always yours. It's something that forgiveness is, and alchemy is. It's a free will choice. I'm not like put. I highly recommend that people embrace forgiveness and exercise it as a principle in their life. But everyone's free will choice is up to them, and I honor that, you know, before anything. And so, whether it's next week or in 10 years or in 40 years or however long on our deathbed, and we finally offer that forgiveness, we'll say, holy shit, I could have done that so many years ago because it was always my choice, nobody else's, and I could have saved myself years of suffering. And you know, the ego will always try to convince you that nobody hates the word forgiveness more than the human ego. And the ego does not want you to associate forgiveness with freedom. Ego wants to associate you to associate forgiveness with slavery, with being enslaved by someone else, or being enslaved by your own ego, or being enslaved by someone else's ego. And like at one of my previous workshops, my friend brought up how his wife had some sexual trauma as a child too, and she said that she feels like forgiving the perpetrator of that transgression was like giving up on her inner child. And I said it's the opposite. It is looking at your inner child and acknowledging the painful experience that was, and hugging your inner child and saying, your suffering was not in vain. Your suffering was not so that I would grow up and hate myself and hold hate in my heart for other people for the rest of my life. Your suffering brought me tremendous lessons. Thank you for enduring that for who I am today. This is Kat's first time getting to meet Sage, and we're really excited.
Sorry, I'm just really excited. I've been trying to get out there, but you know.
Yeah. But life.
Beautiful. Yeah. But baby, what a feeling. Hi, eternal soul. I'm so honored to meet you in this lifetime.
Oh, big boy. Is he happy?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big boy.
You look beautiful, Amberly.
So he was just trying to eat me
He was.
on the way here. Yeah.
You like mommy booby? You like your booby? You like your booby? Dude, you're like the perfect combination of your mommy and daddy.
Right?
I'm so in love. Dude, congratulations, guys. You did great.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Kat.
they gave birth in their fucking mouths. Like, boss that shit.
Yeah. Child help deliver.
Yeah.
Huh.
I played a supportive role.
Yeah.
I like to think, at least.
Oh, Amberly, you did great.
She's
Beautiful. I
amazing.
cannot wait for you to meet Harmony.
She did all the work. I just kept the water warm and helped catch.
Yeah. You did great coaching, didn't you?
I can't wait to hear your story.
She hate you.
I'm so excited to hear your story.
When we were preparing for it, she said that she did not like the word coaching. She's like, "What? So you're gonna be telling me what to do the whole time?" No,
You
I'm
know,
gonna
like
be.
if you're like a coach, like for like a team or something, and he's telling you what plays to do. And
You're already know what you're doing.
yeah, right. Someone's like, "Oh, try and coach me."
Oh yeah. Dan actually got the nervous shit, so they're wheeling me back for my C-section, and
Oh,
and
yeah.
we had to wait on Dan. They just kept giving me the juice.
Right.
I was like,
Right?
is this what it feels like in the ether?
Yeah, of course. Thanks for coming by. So like I was saying about, it's the opposite of giving up on your inner child or giving up on the child that you were. It's ensuring that child didn't suffer in vain, and it's saying like, you're so strong and brave for getting through that and surviving that, and I'm gonna ensure that experience didn't turn your future self into a bitter, hateful, resentful adult, and I'm gonna do something with the pain you endured. I'm not gonna just let it sit and smolder till I die. So telling her that, I think it helped her a lot, you know, because your ego wants you to think that it's giving up on the child who suffered from that, or that it's giving up on, you know, your principles or your morals. And that's why understanding the moral principles is so important so that you can tell the ego to fuck right off when it's trying to prevent you from offering forgiveness. So that's alchemy through forgiveness. It's just like you don't even have to worry about the word alchemy, because if you're truly offering forgiveness, then the alchemy is going to unfold. You're transmuting base experiences and consciousness into higher understanding and lessons, turning your shadow from a monster into a teacher, and you're refusing to run from your pain and your experiences. Does anyone have an example of like when they had a hard time forgiving someone and they finally did, or like anyone have an example of something that they still struggle forgiving? And by the way, forgiveness is not just like a one and done thing. You don't just offer it and it's it, pack it up, I'm done. Things will come back to the surface. Things will bubble up. Emotions will get triggered. And when those things happen, first and foremost, you need to forgive yourself right away for being a human. And as long as you're in a human form, you're going to have an ego. So things will get triggered. You'll see something, hear something, be having a rough day, and you'll think about a painful experience, or you'll think about what this person did. And forgive it before it even happens, because it's going to happen again. You know, the things that you thought you had forgiven will come back up again. And be accepting of that. Those are part of your human experience, and they're going to stick around. They're just not going to control you anymore. You're not going to be the effect of those painful experiences, but rather you're going to be the cause of your experience from here on out. And when those painful pressures and experiences come back up, you've already forgiven yourself for not having totally forgiven when you thought you did, or something like that. It's about having the principle of forgiveness and the spirit of forgiveness at all times, rather than just like being kicked around and trying to forgive here and there. And that's where true alchemy can take place.
Yeah, I really relate to that. I feel like I'm just kind of like kicking around forgiveness. Like, yeah, I guess I forgive you. Then I tell myself, yeah, you forgive them. So just be happy, because I want to be happy. And it's almost selfish, because that's like why I want to forgive people, is it's not really for them. It's for me and the life I'm creating and the reality I'm creating within this simulation.
And your ego wants to tell you that's selfish. And it's not selfish. You know what I mean? Like the ego will want to keep you, and the ego will also tell you, well, forgiving them is letting them off the hook.
Yeah, that's kind of
If you forgive them, you're doing it for them. It doesn't do anything for you. It's all for them. That's bullshit. That's total bullshit. It is only for you. And more often than not, if they know or they find out that you have forgiven them, whether you choose to tell them or not, a lot of times we're so emotionally tethered to someone that if we truly forgive them, then they feel it. They feel it deep down inside, whether they ever register it at the conscious level. Deep down at that emotional tether level, they know that it's been severed. It's been, that negative emotional charge has been broken by your action. And whether we tell them or not, they will benefit from it. First and foremost, it's for you. Forgiveness is for you. But if you truly offer it and truly, you increase your vibration of sovereignty and freedom because of that forgiveness, most of the time it will benefit them too and help them heal from what caused them to hurt you in the first place. As one suffers, all suffer. As one heals, all heal. So that's another beautiful part of forgiveness. Not just the alchemy of self, but the contribution to the sovereignty of the entire world. Because we don't create a sovereign and free society without sovereign free individuals who don't hate themselves and who operate on principles. And if we hold hatred for someone, that's never going to help them outgrow and evolve beyond what caused them to do it in the first place.
Well, I always thought like I shouldn't forgive them, because if I forgive them, they're not going to change their ways anyway. Why does it matter if I forgive them? Because they're not going to like take it and be like, do something with it. You know what I mean? I always felt like they don't deserve the forgiveness unless they're willing to change their behaviors or treat me differently next time. But I come to realize that, like you said, it doesn't really have to do with them.
Right.
It has to do with me not going onto that anger for them. Like, why do that? Why do that to myself?
Because even if we tell ourselves every day that we're okay, we're fine, we're cool not forgiving anyone, or we're cool holding on to that anger, it's beneath the surface and is going to affect our daily behaviors and the way we see ourselves and the way we see our neighbor. So that is an important point to make. It's like they don't deserve it, and that's what true forgiveness is loving them unconditionally, loving the imperfect person, and it doesn't mean bringing them back around or staying in that relationship if they're continuing the behavior.
Or giving them the opportunity to do that again.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's when we evoke the masculine principle of self-defense. I love you. I forgive the imperfect you. That action is not okay. It won't be in my life anymore. And I can love you from a distance and never talk to you again if I don't want to. I'm not saying that to hurt you. I'm saying that because I love myself just as much as I love you. And it's simple as that. And it's like when we're speaking from a place of truth, we don't have to feel bad. And we don't have to feel like a guilt for telling them what the truth is, you know? And so saying it just because it is the truth will set us free even further. And that's important. True reconciliation or rectifying a situation does require like the offending party to say, I fucked up. I'm really sorry. And I won't do that anymore. But forgiveness for ourselves, forgiveness for alchemy, forgiveness for evolving our own consciousness to higher states rather than holding on to the anchors of fear and pain and suffering of the past. Forgiveness does not require the offending party to be sorry. It does not require their apology or their changed behavior or them wanting forgiveness or even knowing they did something wrong. Forgiveness is simply for us. And it's important to not be, it's easy to be tricked into saying it, but if I forgive them, then they don't have any incentive to change. The incentive for them to change is their own suffering that they may not even recognize that they're inflicting by hurting other people, hurting themselves, all these things. That's the only impetus for any of us to really change is our self-inflicted suffering. And whether they consciously register that their actions are causing suffering for them or others or not, eventually in this life or the next, they must come face to face with that, and they must reap what they've sown through karmic forces, through natural law. And so, it's not our job to change them and to punish them. It's our job to heal and evolve ourselves, and offering forgiveness to imperfect people, recognizing that that's common ground we all stand on, is our human imperfection and self-inflicted suffering that causes us to be assholes sometimes. From the worst transgression to the mildest transgression. And
you asked us if there was anybody that we, had a hard time, like, forgiving. I would say definitely for me, one person that's been hard to forgive is my mom. Just the way that, she more partied her way through my childhood. So for me to, become an adult and remove her from my life, essentially becoming an adult at the age of 15 and moving out on my own, lived before I could drive, makes it hard, but to come back around and say that I forgive you for how that went so she could be in my children's lives, that was very hard. Because it's like almost giving her an opportunity again to hurt someone the same way that she hurt me, right? But you want to give them the opportunity, and like Chad says, the benefit of the doubt to, I don't want to say change, that's not the word that I want to use, but just do it differently the
Right.
next go around,
And somebody that is hard to do, and like we've all got parent issues, right? We've all got things with our parents. We all got stuff with our parents. Every person on earth does, because nobody's perfect. And in those situations, our parent was running from something too. They were running from their shadow too. They weren't able to recognize or do the work required for them to be there for us like we needed either. Nobody taught them how to do this. They didn't go to forgiveness workshops. They didn't learn about moral principles either. No one's teaching these things, hardly, And when they're in church, it's just a superficial, get on your knees and ask some dude in the sky for forgiveness. Don't fuck it with it yourself. Don't worry about it yourself. You know what I mean? Just bow on your knees forever, and then you might not burn in hell when you die. So like, no one's really talking about the potent forms of forgiveness and true forgiveness. And so forgiving our mother heals our feminine, and forgiving our father heals our masculine, and forgiving them for letting their pain and their avoidance of their pain become our pain, and for them letting their hurt drive them to fearful acts that hurt us. We have to forgive that, and we have to forgive that for us, and we have to forgive it for our children, and whether we have children or not, our future generations, the youth that we interact with. You know, there's bitterness that comes through just in our auric field. There's bitterness that comes through just in our energy. If we're carrying those things with us, and children especially are susceptible to that. So, this is all alchemy through forgiveness. This is all freedom. Everything that we talk about ultimately is about human freedom. And I want to see a society that exercises, that stands on those principles of forgiveness, self-ownership, non-aggression, and self-defense. Self-defense including the defense of yourself and your neighbor and the innocent and the weak. And if we had a society standing on those principles, we would be happy to give what we have now to our children. And I'm not happy giving what the world we have now to my children. You know what I mean? So that's why we talk about this, and that's why we're doing the nonprofit stuff, and that's why we're trying to just talk about this more and more, have conversations that people want to avoid, like the plague. Have you heard of White's Farm Flea Market?
No, but I've been looking at your adventures. I'm like, this is so much fun.
White's Farm.
Dan and I reached the point where we were just talking over bad.
White's Farm Flea Market and Livestock Auction over in Brookville. Deep Trump territory, deep, hardcore, politicized. I went there with my table set up on Wednesday morning, and I put up the posters, set the cards on there. Only about 3 or 4 people grabbed the card and asked anything about the posters, but hundreds of people walked by and just rubbernecked, leaning back trying to read the questions that I had written on those signs, because those questions are questions that nobody fucking thinks about. What is a right? 99% of the world, if you ask them that question, they'll just be like, it's my right to do this or my right to do that, or what is freedom? People can't properly define freedom, and how the hell can we achieve freedom if we can't properly define it? So even just having those questions on a poster in these situations, in any situations, planting seeds, provoking thought. Someone might go home and that night when they're hanging out at the Trump rally or whatever, they might think back on what is a right, what is freedom, So it's all about human freedom. You know what I mean? There are only 2 options for individually and for the world. It's 100% freedom, which is the ability to exercise all of your natural rights unrestrained by fear of violence or coercion, or there's slavery. You're either completely free or you are enslaved, and so that's what we're trying to work against. I want our children to have a more free society than we have right now, and they will. It's going to get more fucky until it gets better, though. I can tell you that it's not looking any smoother or better right now. But anybody else have any thoughts or things they want to bring up or talk about regarding forgiveness or morality, principles, freedom, rights, anything like that? I know it's a lot to take in, and I tend to talk and flow and not give many pauses for people to bring stuff up, and I apologize for that. So if there's anything you ever want to throw in there and talk about, we can.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm grateful for you guys, because I've been racking my brain for 2 weeks, because I want to have a nice healing sesh tonight, and I'm like, okay, this is on my mind. I think it's might interfere with my business, and I wanted to drop it. And literally, as I was sitting here, I was forgiving them, and then you talked about the forgiveness connection, and then it finally broke through of what exactly I wanted to say, because I just want to say, hey, you disrespected me in my body, in my area, and for us to move on, I want to forgive you, but also if you do that again to someone, I will say, I've seen you do it, and that's what triggered me and needing to forgive you.
Mm-hmm.
So if I see you disrespect women again, I will continue to say something.
Yeah.
And that's my right. And I feel like that's all it needs to be.
You do what's within your rights. The ego, if it's a fear-based reaction, the ego will want to go above and beyond what your rights are. Like for instance, someone trapped in ego. If somebody came up and stepped on my shoe, the ego might beat them within an inch of their life. But really, if somebody or like someone might slap me, and the ego might say a fear-based reaction would be beat that person to a pulp. But really, it's use your hands to prevent them from slapping you again. You know what I mean? Like, you mean it. So if you see someone verbally harassing someone, you probably shouldn't go beat the shit out of them, but you should say, hey, stop fucking doing that. This person, or like if the person, it's clear that they don't want to, they're not accepting what's being said, or that's violating their consent. This person doesn't consent to what you're saying. And if this person isn't making it clear to you, I will, and saying what's truthful is okay. You're not doing it to hurt this perpetrator. You're doing it to care for and defend this victim. You know.
Yeah, because they're currently trying to coerce me to go to bars and stuff. And today's my 6 years sober from alcohol birthday, and it was hurtful because it was on my
Congratulations to you.
on my week of that. So thank you guys, and I'm really proud of that. So by saying like I'm glad you found a cool bar to go to, it doesn't mean I have to participate.
Yeah, yeah. I'm totally cool not going to that bar. You know what I mean?
You can come over, I'll smoke you out, shit. But
Yeah.
I'm not going to the bar.
Yeah, I love you, but that's not my jam, and I won't participate. It's it's all consent. Every human interaction falls into two categories: voluntary or violence. You know what I mean? So if it's not a voluntary interaction between two or more people, then it's a violent interaction. If someone is trying to threaten you or pressure you and you don't consent to it, then it's an act of violence. So saying no is okay. You know. And even when it comes to the truth, just saying what's true because it's true, not with the intention of hurting. Our allegiance has to be to the truth, even before our children, or before our partners. If our allegiance is to the truth, it is much better for my children and the people I love and my neighbors than if I give everything to them and don't care about the truth. You see what I mean?
Dude, that makes it and I feel better. Another side note is for years people have been saying like, why aren't you loyal to people? Like you and Dan are disloyal. And we're like, no, we're loyal to our values. Even if I saw Dan do something like absolutely like atrocious, I told him, I was like, if I, saw you, not that he ever would, but
Right.
we just in stoner, you're chilling at night, just talking about what ifs. I was like, I would snitch on you, and I would want you to snitch on me if I was doing something because I think accountability is more important than like if I want the conscience to rise, I have to be accountable for myself. And if I can't be accountable for myself, I hope I have a support group that will hold me, speak to me out of love accountability.
And that's why it's so important to understand moral principles, to recognize true wrongdoings and true immoral behaviors or transgressions from, oh, that was truthful, but it just hurt my sensitive ego, it just hurt my feelings, and I can't forgive that. That's when we need to look inside and say, well, how come someone else's words made me change the way I value myself? So if a behavior from ourselves or from others doesn't fall into one of those 7 true transgressions, then a lot of times that's a reflection of something we need to heal inside. We can still offer forgiveness to ourselves for being hurt by that comment or this and that. But if it's a true, for us to know true morality, true moral principles, it's very important for us to act within our rights to stop those things. So, I appreciate you all coming by today. This is nice.
I always love hearing you speak.
Yeah,
I love you all. Thanks so much for coming. And I just tomorrow's going to be a fire one too. Tomorrow's going to be real fire. The one tomorrow is called "What is Freedom and What Destroys It." So we're gonna give clear definitions of rights and freedoms, and what freedom is, and we're gonna really dive deep into the pervasive ideologies that are all over the world that most people hold or many people hold, beliefs and ideologies that destroy freedom, and there are a lot of them, and they've been placed in our head. The ideas are not our own. They've been placed in our head for very specific reasons, and it's to keep us enslaved. So we're going to talk about 7 or 8 different ideologies that keep us from being free and that actually destroy freedom. And like, what makes people think it's their right to hurt me and lock me in a cage if I have weed in my pocket, or to threaten me and take my money, or to whatever. We're going to talk about what keeps us from being free, and it's going to be fun. 2 p.m. same time, and that one is going to be in the IKS Dome,
Is that just down?
the Illumination Station Dome. I think it's. You remember where it was last time? I did the workshop right outside the dome. It's by the main stage. That's where that's going to be. So love you all so much.